Ydy'r cyfieithu'n gweithio? Charlie, di Charlie'n dall y cyfieithiad? Di. Shake your head. Da iawn. Chris, am I scared everybody off or something?
Okay, Councillor Nigel, we're recording live, so you can start the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. Noswyddar croeso. Good evening and welcome to the Economy and Place meeting on Wednesday, the 18th of November, where we are all attending remotely. Can I advise members that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed at this very moment in time? The microphones will be muted unless you indicate you wish to speak, at which point I will call out your name and you will need to unmute yourself by turning on your microphone. Can I remind members to choose their language of choice as the translation facilities are available this evening? And that if you wish to speak, that you use the raise hand function, that's the little blue hand. And you can also use the chat facility. Thank you very much. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Humbone, is it? Who's here this afternoon.
Mr. Humberstone, yes.
Sorry, Humberstone, who's here this evening with us presenting a petition on behalf of Chapel Street, Llandudno, which is item number 9. So we will start off on the agenda with item number 1, apologies for absence.
I've received no apologies, Chair.
Thank you very much. Item 2, declarations of interest, Code of Local Government Conduct.
Councillor Pat, I believe.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, can I declare an interest in item 9, I think it is, regarding the petition. I actually live in that ward.
Thank
It's
you.
referring to. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other declarations? No? All right, we'll move on to urgent matters, which I don't think there are any, Jane.
No, Chair.
All right, thank you. Item 4 then is the minutes of the last meeting, and they are on page 4 to 20. The members want me to go through them page by page? Or is somebody happy to move the minutes?
I can move the minutes, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Joan is going to second the minutes. Oh, yeah. So if members are happy to receive the minutes as a true record, could you please show with your hands, please? Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 5, minutes of the local area forums north.
Yes, Councillor Harry Saville is here to present them, Chair, as Chair of the forum.
All right, thank you. Councillor Harry?
Thank you, Chair. The minutes are included in the agenda pack. They are self-explanatory. There's one small error on the second resolution, which has been picked up and I'm sure will be corrected in due course. Members from outside Llandudno might be interested in the discussions we had with North Wales Police in case they might be relevant in their own wards.
Okay, well, thank you, Councillor Harry. Are members happy with those minutes? Are there any comments on them? Okay, would somebody like to propose those minutes? Councillor Phil?
I secondly noted that, Chair.
Okay, that's great. Could everybody just please show your hands that you're happy with that? That's great. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 6, which is the minutes of the North Wales Police and Crime Panel, 28th of September 20. The chair of the committee.
The minutes are on the agenda for information only, Councillor Nigel.
Okay, so do we need a proposer and seconder to accept those? Could somebody please show?
Noted, Chair.
Councillor Bob and Councillor Abdul as well. And if members are happy, could you please show with your hands? I think we've got a full house there. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 7, which is the to review the forward work programme. Dawn,
Yeah, I'll take this, Chair. So the Economy in Place Forward Work Programme is on pages 39 to 49 of your agenda packs, and the combined forward plan is on pages 50 to 82. So can I just advise you of some changes since we published the agenda? As you're aware, the report on Sport North Wales Partnership has been deferred from today's meeting and will now come to the meeting on the 2nd of December. Therefore, I've had to review the forward plans with the Chair and Vice Chair to accommodate this deferment. So we will now move the Active and Creative Lifestyles Annual Report to the January meeting, so we don't have too many items on the December meeting. Also, can I advise you that in relation to the revised LDP timetable, that officers are awaiting feedback and agreement from Welsh government. So hopefully sometime in December, we might be able to report what the timetable will be for you. And then can I also remind members that there's a joint Economy in Place and Finance and Resources Overview and Scrutiny Committee on Tuesday, the 1st of December at 5 o'clock. And that's to consider the funding model for the Coastal Risk Management Programme. That's my update, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Are members happy with the forward work programme? Is there any questions? Councillor Jeff, are you raising your hand? Or?
I was going to propose acceptance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bob Squire?
I think Councillor Harry's got his hand up.
Oh, have you, Harry?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, the report on ash dieback, do we know when that's likely to come to committee?
No, I will chase that up. I know this. They were going back to Denbighshire regarding the joint project, so I think they were having another meeting. It's hopefully sometime in the new year, but I will try and find clarification from Andy Wilkinson.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so we've got a proposer and seconder for the forward work programme. If members are happy, please show by raising your hands. That's great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair.
So we'll now move on to item 8, which is questions to the Cabinet Member. And we have a question this evening from Councillor Donald Milne to the Cabinet Member for Environment and Transport. Councillor Don, are you there?
Yes, I am here. I thought the question was actually to the Cabinet Member responsible for Economy.
It's to both members.
Sorry, yeah, I missed that.
Yeah.
To the Cabinet Member for Economy and the Cabinet Member for Environment and Transport. Okay, Don, do you want to give your question?
Sorry, so can I just come in before Councillor Don? Can I just remind members that there is only 10 minutes allowed for questions, and Councillor Don is allowed to ask a supplementary question. So just before he starts. So that's okay. Thank you.
I can assure you that I will keep well within that on my side of things. So question. Environmental changes are a major risk to our economy, which being based upon tourism and agriculture requires massive investment in protective measures. It is good to see that much of our flood defence work, particularly in Penroost, has helped protect properties in our county. As the Chief Executive stated in his recent weekly blog, 1 or 2 houses flooded is 1 or 2 too many. Not only do we need to protect housing and life in our towns and villages, but we see major concerns expressed in the media over risk to farmland, transport infrastructure, and historic properties like Widder Castle. Given that flooding events cause a major disturbance to our economy and transport and endanger lives and homes, can the Cabinet Member for Economy outline his strategies, 1, for prioritising the needs of Conway, and 2, for raising the profile of Conway projects with Natural Resources Wales, Railtrack, Highways Agency and other public bodies to gain their support at successfully attracting the Welsh Government funding that our Conway projects so clearly need?
Thank you very much, Councillor Don. Councillor Gromway, do you have any response?
I think seeing as the initial part is for transport, I think Greg was going to come in on the transport side now, go on to the economy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Although this question was originally to Councillor Gromway, obviously crossed it over into my realm, so I thought a little bit of background and some what's happened with flood risk and infrastructure would help set up the a forward response for the question from Councillor Don.
Thanks, Greg.
As members may be aware, all our flood capital alleviation works are funded to the major part by the flood environment section in Welsh Government. We're now getting a 85% payment through for these flood works under what's called the Crump scheme. We have to pay 15% normally towards construction costs. The FRI, Flood Risk and Infrastructure Department within ERF, identifies flood risk hotspots based on actual flood events reported and experienced by local communities. Where flooding occurs, an investigation is carried out and generally resulting in a flood risk investigation report, otherwise known as a Section 19 report. If it's identified that an engineering solution may be required, funding is from the Welsh Government to carry out a business justification case to see if it's feasible to form an economic point of view to carry out a detailed design. If this business case identifies a scheme as feasible, then we apply to the Welsh Government for funding for a detailed design and ultimately construction of a scheme. Prioritise on need according to Welsh Government guidance. Prior to a scheme going to construction, the FRI team will prepare a capital business case for the 15% proportion of our contribution of the construction works, and historically these have always been supported by council. FRI will always advance schemes to Welsh Government, and they are currently funding flood alleviation schemes in Clanfabachan, 2 in Pemamawa, Betsacoed, Glan Conway, Abergele, Llansannan, 3 in Llanrwst and Dolwydd Ellen. Additionally, Welsh Government are also funding schemes, coastal schemes at various stages of development on the coastline at Llanfabachan, Llandudno, Penrhyn Bay, 2 in Colwyn Bay, and between Llandullas and Kimmel Bay. As part of this ongoing process, we have regular meetings with NRW, Welsh Water on an operational and also on a costing basis. Additionally, within the last year, over £8 million of funding from Welsh Government Transport has come forward for the old Colwyn defences, which do not qualify for the normal flooding responses because it doesn't protect actual buildings and businesses and the actual road and infrastructure. The one partner in that has not come forward so far is Network Rail, which are funded directly by the UK Exchequer, and their maintenance plans on the 5-year cycle. They have not identified this as a risk themselves as they do not own the frontage. However, we are still working with them to try and fill in the funding gap on this scheme we want to bring forward, although we have actually had an initial £6,075,000 from Welsh Government on this scheme again after the initial funding. I'm also very pleased to say that after a concerted effort and lots of discussion with Welsh Water, they are now coming on board to put something into this scheme as well, which is something they've not agreed to do in the previous times. To give you just a quick summary over the last few years of funding we've had, between 2018-19, over 1.1 million in 12 schemes, 19-20, 1.2 million over 14 schemes, and 2020, 431,000 over 7 different schemes. And currently in the pipeline under the Crump schemes, we have 50.5 million potential of work going forward, which we're applying for grant funding for, or in stages of doing that. Flood alleviation scheme to that is a further 2.472 million, which is committed for flood alleviation works in 11 different schemes. So I hope that sets the background where we're at, and I'll ask Councillor Cromway to continue.
Thank you, certainly for bringing in all that information about the current schemes underway. But certainly, I think it's a very timely question from Don. We're all aware of climate change, and as a farmer and heavily involved in tourism, I'm only too aware of the significance of the value to our economy. The challenges to agriculture, I'm well versed on, obviously, as a farmer, and the challenges that we face going about growing our crops. But there is close dialogue going on between ourselves, the farm unions and the NRW to look at delivering sustainable mitigation schemes to try and prevent future flooding. There's all sorts of talks about the future of tree planting in rural areas, and a number of schemes are coming forward. Of course, there's uncertainty at the moment because Brexit has not helped the situation, and NRW still don't know what the funding is going to be for a lot of these projects. Many of the projects have been developed and they're on the shelf, but it's all down to funding. Hopefully we'll have clarity post-Brexit on how that funding will be delivered by both Welsh Government and National Government. There was a report Owen Connery had written to go to the Public Service Board between ourselves and Denbighshire, which is currently chaired by the NRW, and that report refers to the need for sustainable development and also for protecting the infrastructure that we have. And obviously climate change is high on the agenda. I had a meeting this morning that we'd arranged with John Merrick with the Destination Conway to go through the Moor wind farm project, which the developers promise an awful lot of economic spin-offs from. But our case, and I made it in more than one point, is as far as Conway is in consideration, a tidal barrage would be far more beneficial to the people of this area. It would protect the coastline. It would also mean that it would enhance the renewable energy much longer than a offshore wind farm, because obviously the cost of construction is significant, but the long-term benefits far outweigh that, because apart from, as I say, the energy production, you've got the coastal protection, and all that area of land which basically is lying almost fallow between Llandudno all the way up to Prestatyn and beyond is totally unproductive. Well, it is stifled because of the lack of opportunity to develop because of the flood risk. And certainly that is a massive economic driver. If we can get that safeguarding of that coastal strip, it would be a real catalyst for delivering economic benefit for the residents of Conway. I also will be working closely with Network Rail, and it's pleasing to see the work they've done on the Llanrwst line. The Conway Wire line is certainly holding firm so far. They've spent over £20 million in recent years in sustaining that link and hopefully trying to deliver something that is going to take us forward into the future. But as far as the rural area and farming and the tourism sector in the rural area, the infrastructure is going to be critical. And we've seen from COVID our reliance on fibre and connectivity. So it's important also that we link with all the outside bodies to ensure that whatever is delivered is both sustainable and robust, because a lot of the infrastructure that goes in rural areas is not underground as it is in the urban setting, but a lot of it is on poles and which is sustainable, vulnerable to the elements, obviously. And you just mentioned ash dieback. Certainly that in itself is causing great concern, because many of our infrastructure and cabling runs along the side of highways, and that's where we have an awful lot of ash dieback, and that is causing a significant problem going forward. So we really need to look at a sustainable programme and working closely with the PSB, with NRW, with all landowners and the partners. We have to bear that in mind. So I welcome the question. There are significant challenges, but there are real opportunities. And COVID has really focused our mind, I think, on what those needs are going forward, because we will be working differently. Tourism is highly dependent on its recovery, on having the infrastructure in place. So we need to make sure that we do everything we can to bid for the monies to deliver that infrastructure. I suggested that we have a meeting in the near future with BT and Openreach to try and deliver better infrastructure, not just for the rural area, because many areas in our urban areas in Conway still haven't got that fibre connection that is so vital going forward. So there's a lot of asks, but there's a lot of opportunity, and it's very timely. I think the climate is changing both politically and naturally towards having sustainable schemes in place to see us through into the future. And we talk about electrification. Well, if we are going to have electrification, and they moved the goalpost again today, we need to make sure that tourists and our residents can access electrification. We need to build on the charging points throughout our communities, and that in itself is a major challenge. And I think they could look at that when they're putting this infrastructure in for charging and electrification, to link that we're putting in superfast and things of that nature. Real opportunities if we think outside the box, in my opinion.
That's great. Thank you very much, Garonwy. Councillor Don?
Thank you very much, Garonwy, for your detailed list of activities, along with the same from Councillor Gregg. Can I ask a further question, which hopefully will get a shorter answer? It could even be a yes or no. It is clear from recent reports to Council, including our LDP, that Conway has limited provision for commercial land development. Much of this is blighted by flood risk. Given that following your opposition to the land drainage bylaws at Council in February 2019, where you and other members of your group proposed the resurrection of a flood defence committee, which had last met nearly 10 years previously, and which was reduced at the council meeting to merely the formation of a separate land drainage bylaws committee, would you not agree that it now be beneficial to our residents to return to this issue by reforming what you initially proposed at council? Not just a Conway Valley flood group, but a flood group for the whole of Conway, a flood protection committee which could review all the problems across Conway created by both high rainfall and rising sea levels due to climate change. In this way, we would be addressing the risks of flooding from the many rivers and watercourses in our county, as well as the need for coastal protection from such disasters as those that hit Tywyn in the 90s. If we are to improve our carbon footprint and support the rural economy, we need investment in the protection from disruption of our vital travel routes. We cannot afford to have our transport disrupted in the way that the Conway Valley Line has been in recent years. I am sure that these issues are already on your agenda, as highlighted in your recent comments on the value of tidal barriers, and which you have just repeated again today, and their benefits for coastal protection. So will you assure us that you will make the reforming of this vital flood defence committee a part of your policy to protect Conway's economy? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Gronway, if you are going to respond to that, you need to unmute your microphone.
Yeah, so I think I responded to some of the points you just raised in your supplementary question about the works we are pursuing and the partnership working with NRW. I raised it in the PSP meeting on Monday. I think we met again, the creation of flood risk boards, and we've raised it in the South Area Forum South as well. We had a presentation in the last Area Forum South, and they've agreed, the NRW, that we will be forming those area committees again. It's vitally important. That local knowledge is so important going forward, and about giving communities the tools to respond when there are emergencies like we've seen in recent years.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gronway. I'll have to hold you there because the 10 minutes are up. But I want to thank yourself for enlightening us to the work that you're doing to raise the profile of the projects in Conway. And I'd especially like to thank Councillor Gregg, Cabinet Member for Environment and Transport, for his very full report there on all the good works that his department were doing on behalf of the residents of Conway and keeping us all safe. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you for the invite. Thank you indeed.
Thank you, Nigel.
Okay, thanks a lot. So we'll now move on to item 9, which is to receive a petition on behalf of the residents in Chapel Street, Llandudno. And we have Mr. John Humberstone, the lead petitioner for Chapel Street, Llandudno petition. In line with the Conway County Borough Council's constitution, has been invited to attend the meeting and present the petition. Mr. Humberstone, you will have 3 minutes to provide a brief summary of what the petition is about and how many signatories there are.
Thank you. Good evening, Noswydda. Chapel Street consists of 13 B&Bs guest houses, four holiday flats, 8 flats in each, 6 private dwellings with 5 flats in each, 2 restaurants, 2 chip shops, a hairdresser, job centre and Careers Wales. It's a pretty busy street, I'm sure you'll agree. Our concerns are basically the volume of two-way traffic and the size of the vehicles using this very small street. The speed of the traffic often at very speeds. Car parking is on both sides of the road. It's unrestricted. It consists of a lot of shopkeepers and shop staff and bank staff, which means they're there for most of the day. It's extremely difficult for us that do have drives to actually get onto the road without assistance as the cars come down at breakneck speed. There are 2 junctions, Market Street and James Street. Both have poor visibility ways. The heavy footfall, people trying to cross the road with poor visibility, is just an accident waiting to happen. There are no lowered curbs for wheelchair users on either side, which means when they come to cross either James Street or the Market Street, they have to go into the road to find a suitable place where they can actually get their wheelchair back onto the pavement. The gutters and gullies are blocked, often with leaves and vegetation, which make the paths flooded and obviously dangerous. And what we're asking basically is either for a lower speed limit, speed retarders, or a one-way system, or preferably all three. The danger is increasing, and a severe accident is going to happen if these concerns are not addressed soon. That's it, gentlemen. That's what I needed to say. In terms of the petition, I'm sorry you've thrown me a underhand one there, Chair. I'll count them again. I gave it to Harry Saville. I assume that someone on the committee has got hold of it and presumably will enlighten you on the numbers.
That's very good, Mr. Humberstone. Thank you very much for your petition. I'm sure that Councillor Harry will forward that on to the Cabinet member, Councillor Gregg, who will pass that on to the officers. Councillor Gregg, you want to come in?
Yeah, if I could just comment, thank you, Chairman. I was actually very pleased to see this come forward. We've not had something like this for some time, so it's nice to see engagement with our members of the public and them talking to us. And I've actually spoken to this officers already and asked for some traffic data to be collected on this street so we can see a way forward, because all data, we can't do anything, as you know, because that drives the funding source. But I've already requested that.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Beck. Right then, members, we're going to move on to item 10, and that is.
Can I just come in? I think Councillor Pat would like to has raised her hand.
Oh yeah.
And Councillor Harry.
Councillor Harry.
Okay, Councillor Pat.
I'm glad Councillor Gregg said this road is going to be monitored. I think that's really a way forward, particularly for residents. But can I also say there are other roads where traffic goes through quite quickly. Brook Street, Malgwyn Road, which leads on to St David's, traffic goes down there very quickly. So, you know, there's quite a few roads in that area that need to be looked at too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Harry Saville.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just going to pick up the point about the number of signatories in case that's of interest. So when I collected the petition from Mr. Humberstone, there were 15 signatories. Now I've had a look, and from what I can see, 12 are on the electoral roll. There are 49 people on the electoral roll on Chapel Street. So that means there's 25% of the people there felt that, you know, this was certainly something worth putting their names to. There are, as John's mentioned, a number of B&Bs and guest houses on that road, and at times it can become congested. I'm not a highways engineer. I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I'm really pleased that Greg's picked this up and has actually asked for ERF to look at it. I'm sure we'll be interested to see what they come back with in due course. And, you know, Pat's mentioned other roads in Llandudno. Certainly, if there are any lessons that can be learned from this, perhaps they could be employed elsewhere.
Indeed. Best course of action is for the local members to work closely with the highways officers. We've managed to address a few issues that we've got in the east of the county, and I have every faith in our officers to be able to sort something out, I'm sure. Councillor Gregg?
Yeah, just for members' interest, they may not be aware of this, but Welsh governments are actually planning to introduce a nominal 20 mile per hour speed limit in most built-up areas. That is due to come in, I believe, the paperwork should go through in October next year, and then they've got 12 months to implement it. So it's quite possible that the vast majority of the areas we just mentioned now will become 20-mile-an-hour zones naturally anyway. But that's something, we're still doing this piece of work, but it's just something for members' information in case they weren't aware of that.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg. All right, members, so we'll now move on then to item 10, which is the Conway Green Infrastructure Assessment and the Replacement Local Development Plan. We have James Harland and Robin Sandham, who are going to present the report, along with Tim Johns, the consultant and landscape and urban design, who has prepared some slides. James, I believe you're going to give us the preamble to this.
Yeah, I'll just give you a brief introduction. I'm also just going to share my screen just briefly, and then I'm going to pass you over to Tim. If you just bear with me 2 seconds. So I hope everyone can see that. Yeah, so just give you a brief introduction really in terms of the green infrastructure assessment and what we have to do in terms of the local development plan. It's now a statutory requirement. We have to prepare one. We have to prepare a green infrastructure assessment to inform the local development plan that's set out in Planning Policy Wales. And that pretty much says 3 things we have to do. One, that it informs the policy going forward in the future. So what we ask for from developers, what sites and what development sites have to do in the future have to conform to that policy that we take forward in the plan. And this assessment informs that approach. The second element is the land allocations in the plan itself. They will have to conform to what this document says. So all the land allocations we have coming forward, and I know there's a few members here today that sit on the task and finish group in terms of the strategic sites and the allocations, will all have to conform to what is required within this document in terms of a green infrastructure. I'll come on to this diagram in a minute. The third element is also outside of those allocations. It also identifies potential opportunities across the whole of the county borough. These opportunities outside of the sites are more aspirational. However, they still require funding. They still require more working with certain services, internal and external, to make it happen. But overall, as we progress the local development plan, we still be requesting funds from certain developers to put toward this kind of wider strategy as well, not just the sites and the policy. So it is quite significant in terms of what we have to do over the next 15 years to form the next plan. The reason I put this up on the screen before we pass you over to Tim, as part of the LDP, we have a carbon neutral planning framework, and there's been a bit of discussion already. I know Gronway's mentioned a few things in terms of obviously towards zero carbon, those sorts of things in terms of what we do in the future. This is our framework, which you're seeing on the screen at the moment. And the green infrastructure is just one element of our part of the LDP. All these elements will be coming through the political system and will be identified in the LDP in terms of how we deliver planning for carbon neutral framework. So green infrastructure is one. There are various elements on here that's also been raised already in terms of any generation, which could be tidal lagoon, it could be wind, it could be solar, it could be any of those kind of energy. Another key area that we're working on is the built environment. We have a paper coming forward shortly, which we'll be bringing through the political process, which is about towards zero carbon. And that is about new build developments coming forward in the future and what developers have to do in terms of looking at passive homes, looking at how we meet certain elements of employment or retail to ensure we're working towards this carbon neutral framework. But that was just an insight in terms of where this kind of green infrastructure element comes from. This is part of just one wider framework. I don't want to go into the recommendations first, so what I'll do is pass you over to Tim, who we've been working with for some time on the green infrastructure assessment and how that informs the process. So if I stop sharing, I can pass you over to Tim to take you through, with the next kind of 10 minutes presentation before we go on to the recommendations and questions. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, James.
Yeah, thank you, James. I'm just going to share screen and just bear with me as I find the file. Won't be a second. Sorry, just bear with me. Sorry, Jane, I just wondered if you had the PDF available. Unfortunately, I don't seem to be able to share screen on this system. Do you have that available?
Sorry, Tim, bear with me.
Yeah, apologies for this.
I think it's because you're down south, Tim.
Across the border.
Hi members, I've got the presentation, so I'll share my screen now, okay?
Thank you very much.
Done.
Can members see that now?
Yes, thank you.
I think if you select, there's a button at the bottom there. If you could maybe just show full extent of the slide, that would be great. I think that's it. Yeah, I think
that one.
I think it is.
Sorry, I can't seem to find that. Can members see that though?
You see the first screen, the first slide, Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems okay to me. That's it.
Yeah. Is Robin still in the meeting? Robin has also got the presentation if he wants to try.
Tim, can you see the presentation? Because
I can see it. Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't show the full slide at the moment. I'm wondering if we just need to find the full slide extents button. But
could we try the zoom out?
Just in the bottom right.
Bottom right, yes.
The slide bar just next to that.
The minus.
That's it.
That.
Just that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that look okay?
And perhaps if you go back to the start, that would be great.
Sorry.
Okay, members, I do apologise for that. Thank you for inviting me tonight to speak on this study. I work at TEP in Warrington and have been involved in the study for the council since the beginning of the year. I was really interested to hear your conversation about flood risk before this presentation, and I think there's a real opportunity for green infrastructure to help mitigate some of those issues of flood risk. You know, green infrastructure can act almost like a sponge, literally, and slow the flow of water, and hopefully sort of reducing risk downstream, so to speak. Just in terms of tonight, I'm conscious I don't have very long. I just wanted to tell you about the aims of the study, the vision and concept for green infrastructure, show you some of the mapping we've undertaken, cover some of the priorities that are directing the study, and then round off with one of the strategic sites. So next slide, please. You'll all be aware yourselves that Conway has a great environment and recognised for its wildlife and amazing diversity of landscape. So I've just got one or two slides just really to remind us all of those great assets. So this is Llyn Chraffu at the edge of the Snowdonia National Park. And the next slide is obviously Conway Castle near the mouth of the Conway. And the last slide in terms of this little sequence is the next slide is the adventure park at Snowdonia, just by Dalgarrog. And obviously we want to harness those great assets as part of the study and giving visitors and residents some great opportunities with those great landscapes. The next slide is on a sort of different topic, really. I've just brought it into the pack, really. When friends and colleagues ask me what I mean by green infrastructure, I'm going to shorten that to GI as an acronym. I compare it to grey infrastructure. And if you think of the connected and comprehensive network of road, rail, runways, power lines and drains, And you can see that obviously with this slide of Spaghetti Junction in Birmingham, this sort of connected nature of the roads. And grey infrastructure is obviously there for our the benefit of our quality of life and to enable us to get around. Now, the vision for green infrastructure, or GI, is the same in a sense. It's that idea of connected and comprehensive green corridors for people and nature. So if we think of some examples, connected walkways, bike routes, connected wildlife corridors for species to migrate and to feed and to breed, comprehensive tree canopy cover in the urban areas to help reduce flood risk and make those places more amenable for living. So really the vision of GI is that connected and comprehensive nature. And actually, as a little aside, as I still looking at that slide, the colleague that found the slide for me, I hadn't anticipated that there would actually be some green and blue infrastructure in the slide. So it's a happy coincidence that there was a kind of green canopy and a canal and a reservoir below the road network. The next slide is the Wellbeing Goals, the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, and again, you'll be familiar with those. And I think green infrastructure can contribute to all of those, in fact, and certainly looking at the top left there, the globally responsible Wales, the idea that GI can contribute to managing the risk of climate change and adapt to climate change. And a healthier Wales, again, that sort of idea that GI can contribute to neighbourhoods and communities and help people to live healthier lives. Now, the next slide shows us the many different types of GI, and certainly there for you to view. And what we've done is we've mapped all those types of GI across Conway County Borough using our geographical information software. And the next slide shows you the extent of GI across our study area. Now, the lighter green is the areas of agricultural land. Lots of that's, as you will know. The darker green are the areas of woodland, and the brown is heathland that you can sort of see in the sort of central parts of the study area. And what we've done is we've calculated the land coverage of those different types of GI. And the next slide shows the 53% refers to agricultural cover. The next largest coverage is 15%, and that's grass and scrubland. And the third largest coverage is 13%, and that's woodland. So that compares with the Welsh average of woodland coverage of 15%. But very low compared to the European average of 37% for woodland cover. Next slide, please. And these are some of the functions that GI can deliver for the benefit of people and nature. And I wondered if maybe in this moment you think of the wooded slopes to the side of the Conway Valley, and think about some of those functions that the woodland in that valley will be delivering. I think I can see a number of there that, you know, the setting for recreation, the habitat for wildlife, helping to slow the flow of water down into the system, the leaves capturing water and slowing that sort of attenuation of water into the water courses. So, and shading from the sun, of course. So I think there's a lot of there's a number of functions that GI can deliver for people and nature, and that's one of the key concepts which we call multifunctionality. Next slide. And what we've done is we, again, using our GIS system, we've mapped multifunctionality across the study area. Now, it's a kind of heat map. So the red color shows the areas of greatest multifunctionality, and that typically tends to be wooded areas. Looking at map there, I think you may be able just to pick out the wooded areas in the Conway Valley there, sort of bottom left or sort of midway left on the slide. The blue areas are areas of lower multifunctionality, and I think that starts tells us where we need to look at improving our GI across the study area so it can deliver more functions. Next slide, please. And this is really just another slide just to convey the benefits that GI can bring to the three pillars of sustainability, those being economic, social, and environmental. Next slide, please. Just going to touch really briefly on the method we've been following. So of course, we've been through all the planning policy and the evidence base, some of the NRW studies in the area, making sure that we're really up to speed with policy and factual information on the ground. We've spoken to a number of stakeholders, including council officers, town councillors, neighbouring authorities, the Wildlife Trust and the Rivers Trust to get their knowledge as well. And what we've done is we've married that with our objective analysis, which is the GIS work I've just been through, just to make sure that we've got a clear direction going forward, and that our objective analysis is kind of modified and tempered by the great local knowledge of people working in the area. And where that's taken us is that in the next slide we have 5 priorities, and I won't read them out verbatim, but really looking at connected biodiversity, a thriving blue environment, and looking at sort of water quality and a blue environment that's managed in terms of flood risk, sustainable growth and economy, health and well-being, and improving connectivity. And those have been developed really through our looking at policy and some of the NRW work, and we've used that really to sort of channel our work towards the end of the study in terms of some of the mapping. And the next slide shows just that process of how we've used the mapping. We've started on the left with the typology. Remember, that's all the different types of GI across Conway County Borough. And then we've analysed those different functions that each type delivers. And then what we've done is through the priorities, the 5 priorities, we've started to work out where we need to improve the multifunctionality of GI to deliver those 5 priorities. And the next slide shows the opportunities for biodiversity, making that more connected. In the green there on the plan, we've highlighted the areas to protect in the SSSIs, the local wildlife sites, the ancient woodland. And around those green areas, we've buffered those core areas in that orange colour, which is where we think there's opportunities to improve the GI, to improve connectivity for wildlife. Now, those orange areas tend to be agriculture, but we think could perform better for biodiversity. In the north there along the coast, you might expect those are area of red, which we've highlighted as areas to create GI. So that's potentially areas with no current GI, but the opportunity to provide woodland or grassed areas for wildlife so that they can move through the area across to the coast. Of course, there's some areas that haven't been coloured, and they're likely to be GI, probably agriculture, but at this stage, they're not considered to be priority areas. The next slide is about, probably covers 2 priorities. It covers sustainable growth, sustainable and economic growth, and also the promotion of healthy lifestyles. And what we try to do there is pick out some of the assets that there are in Conway, particularly along the coast, some of the areas of nature that people can access, some of the beaches, the adventure park, Snowdonia at Dolgarrog, and really just staking the importance of GI and the setting that it can provide for those assets and those venues. And probably you can also see some of the cycle routes and long distance trails, those sort of linear routes along the coast. And the next slide. These are just the final 2 slides, actually, as as James said at the start, the GIA will inform the sort of development of the strategic sites. And we're just going to look at, so we've got the 4 along the coast there, and the 5th one at Llanrwst inland a bit. And we are just going to, the next slide is really about Llanfairfechan, and just to show you just indicatively what we've been thinking, the green indicates the very nature of the wooded edges to the site. I don't know if you know that area around Aber Road, but it's a sloping site sloping down northwards towards the coast, but some interesting existing woodland. The dashed lines that you can see across the site there are constraints in terms of development. So there is a culvert for water and for a stream, and also a gas main running east to west. And while they're a constraint to development, we think they provide a great opportunity for the site to open the culvert up as a resource, and also the restriction placed by the gas main creates an opportunity for a green corridor. And we'd also propose buffers around the existing woodland just to maintain that habitat at the edge of the wooded area. So I think that's the slide pack for this evening. Thanks again for letting me present, and thanks for your interest and attention.
Thank you very much. Does Robin have anything to add to this?
I think it's okay. I'll just come on to the recommendations. Is that okay, Nigel?
Sure.
Obviously, like I said in the introduction, really, there's 3 key areas: policy formulation, which will be quite statutory in the future in terms of what developers have to do, how they have to provide on-site work, but also financial work as well in terms of how they contribute to the whole process. There's the land allocations, and Tim, thanks for Tim there to doing the presentation, just gave you an example of one of those sites that would also have to be delivered by the developers as part of cost. The key thing to say as well is that green infrastructure, obviously carbon neutral, all those sorts of things are starting to become higher up the tree in terms of importance. So that has an impact on the finance and the viability of certain schemes when we go forward in the future. So things like affordable housing, 5 years ago, affordable housing would be top of that tree in terms of the importance where that money came from. So there's a balance, more of a balance to be had when we go forward now, looking at all these elements, looking at how we contribute to in terms of flood risk reduction, those sorts of things, and the carbon neutral will have more of a balance as we go forward. But in terms of the recommendations then, based on obviously what we presented today, they're on page 85 of the report. Obviously note and approve the GI as evidence to support the replacement LDP. Again, that was set out in Appendix A, so the full report is in there. Note the future land allocations, what we will require from developers in the future. That could be physical, so on site, or financial contributions, but also, and I think this has been raised, and it was RRG who mentioned this, I think it's an important factor, is obviously GIA from a planning perspective is not just about planning, it's about a wider strategic approach as well. And that means how do we deliver this more widely across the authority, and how do we create more of a strategic approach to delivering GI, and obviously looking at carbon neutral side of things. So we want this document to inform any future approach of that as well. So they're the recommendations. So yep, that's it from me. Thanks, Nigel.
Okay, thank you very much, James. Well, I'll open it up to the floor. Does any members have any comments they'd like to make or questions?
Councillor Chris, I believe. And
Councillor Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want to thank Tim for an excellent presentation and to move the recommendations.
All right, thank you. Councillor Don?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, an absolutely fabulous piece of work, which I think has got a lot more value than just from the sort of planning point of view that we're really looking at it tonight. And I just wondered whether, in fact, we could be looking at putting together some form of document to inform residents and particular groups within our county of residents for the way that they can help improve GI over the coming years, because clearly it is going to be a major benefit to our environment. So again, thanks for such a detailed piece of work.
Okay, James, do you want to come back there?
Yeah, I think certainly through the planning process and the policy formulation, we could look at the more detailed work from a community level. Yeah, we can certainly do that. We're also, be working closer with the Climate Change Board as well. So we represent that, and plus present our carbon neutral kind of planning framework as well, to make sure there is connectivity and joining up with the other services, in particular ERF, which we need to be working a lot closer with. So.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that GI will bring benefits to the well-being and improve the environment for all our residents. I'm just mindful of the fact that not all areas of the county are blessed with new development, and it would be good to see a wider strategy. I notice on page 176 of the report, it talks about Town and Kimmel Bay in 15.4, and we have one of the lowest amount of trees in the whole of Wales in the east of the county. And when you think about it, with all the hard standing that we have on all the many caravan sites throughout the east of the county, the hard standing on the Tir Prince Raceway and Funfair, Knightley's Funfair. We also have the largest industrial estate in the whole of the county, the Trosolwg Industrial Estate. And from the report, we are absolutely desperate for green infrastructure in the east of the county. 5.15 talks about opportunities that are available, and it talks about the Conwy and Denbighshire Council's active travel and recreational route, which is to bring a cycle and footpath across the River Clwyd into the Park Haynes area. And there are plans on page 177, 178 and 179 of the report showing the proposed development on the Park Haynes of green infrastructure, which would be of great benefit in this, what you might class as a green desert of an area of the county. And it would be of benefit to the wider area, or as a wider strategy. Anyway, we'll move on. We've got Councillor Ian Jenkins who's been waving his hand. So, Ian?
Diolch yn fawr iawn chi, Mr Cadeirydd. Diolch am y cyflwyniad diddorol ofnadwy. Da ni'n Dyffryn Conwy yn sylweddoli rwan na rafu nerth y dŵr sy'n dod i mewn i'r dyffryn o'r holl law yma. Ac faswn i'n hoffi gwybod pa mor fuan bydd pethau yn cael eu gweithredu. Da ni wedi bod yn siarad am hyn ers rhai gryn amser erbyn hyn, a da ni'n gweld, mae'r ymwneud yn plannu coed i fyny ar y Mignaint ag ati i arafu dipyn o'r dŵr, ond fysa arafu y ffosydd, mae yna lot o waith fysa cyfoeth naturiol yn gallu neud o fewn y goedwig i rafu'r dŵr. Fysa'n rhaid noson gwsg esmwyth i'r trigolion Dyffryn Conwy os fysa ni'n gallu gweld bod yr afon yn cael ei rafu rhyw ffordd. A pryd mae hyn yn mynd i gael ei weithredu, dydy'r peth. Da ni wedi siarad digon amdano ar hyn o bryd. A dwi'n dwi'n gwybod gen James neu Tim rhyw WhatsApp am hynna. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
James?
Okay, yeah, thank you, Nigel. First of all, apologies. My Welsh is not great and I forgot to press the translation button. So apologies, Ian. Yeah, certainly I think from a flood risk perspective in Llanrwst, it's a unique situation, isn't it? There's no doubt about that in terms of the floodplain. Yes, there are elements that we could continue as part of the wider infrastructure elements of this study. But in terms of obviously flood risk works, those sort of elements, I think it's slightly outside of this study. and one potentially that's being progressed by RF maybe. Sorry to push it aside, but certainly we could look at green infrastructure to a degree to at least attempt to lessen any flood risk issues in that area.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peter Lewis.
Well, thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. Just to comment on the issue that Councillor Ian raised, I think the flooding that we've had recently has been attributed to flash rainfall, and I doubt whether or not any mitigation measures that might have been in place would have coped with that. But my question really is, in terms of page 101, 119, in terms of the population growth, which indicated there is a bit lower than the figure that I've seen quoted elsewhere. So I just wondered how this compared with our previous population figures over a corresponding period for the previous LDP, and really what effect an increased population post-COVID, given all the publicity we're seeing in terms of people moving from cities, on the proposals that are before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Councillor Sam Cotton. Sorry, Sam, we can't hear you.
People are, over the past few months, particularly, people are appreciating the environment around them and the opportunities to get out and about. So obviously, the green space, we're lucky we live in such a beautiful area and we've got that on our doorsteps, but not everybody's as lucky as we are. So just to make that point, I think it's important that this doesn't just turn into a document that gets put on the shelf in the planning department and gathers dust. So I wonder if Councillor Chris will be happy to add to the recommendations he's already moved, that that the green infrastructure assessment is used to inform wider strategies across the local authority, and that obviously would have a great impact on ERF, who carry out the majority of that work in the county.
James?
Yeah, I think, certainly, I've already said there's 3 points: policy and land allocations, which will be statutory. They'll be mandatory for all developers to deal with. It's those elements outside, as Sam said as well, the wider strategy side of things. So we are going to be presenting this to the Climate Change Board. I think that's on the 25th of November. So I'm going to raise it there in terms of whether or not this could support a wider strategy as well. So yeah, let me present it there. But yeah, I think we can certainly look to see how best this informs a wider strategy.
Thank you, James. Is there a possibility of looking at the Parkane site as a possible trial area for a wider strategy?
Yeah, I think the Park Hannis is one area. At the moment, there's 2 key areas. Abergele, where we're looking at getting Welsh Government funding, which looks to be pretty successful, really, when we look at that. So they're looking, TEP are obviously helping us out with that, and Tim's helping out with that area. Park Hannis is also another area based on the issues you raised in your comments before, really, about the level of green infrastructure in that area. So certainly, yeah, we want to take that forward as a key project. And I think that's something that we could include in the Welsh Government funding opportunities that are coming forward on green infrastructure. A lot of them are linked to place plans now, but certainly I think Park Hannis is an area that we want to progress as part of this study.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Abdul Khan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think I was just going to second the proposal that Councillor Chris Hughes made, but Councillor Sam also made the amendment, so I'm not sure where we stand here. I am quite happy to accept Councillor Sam's proposal, though, but it all depends on Councillor Hughes. He's made the original proposal. Thanks,
All
Chair.
right. Councillor Michael Smith.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me speak, and thanks for a great report. It's really great to see this one coming forward. Don't want to go over anything that Councillor Nigel's already covered, but in Kimmel Bay and Towyn Town Council, we've been looking at the words around green infrastructure for some time. It does make part of our place plan, which is a work in progress, and the Park Haynes site is an important milestone for us if we can look to cut that off the mark. The word was stolen by Councillor Nigel, green desert. It's been used by Town Councillor Barry Griffiths, who's done a lot of work looking into green infrastructure for us as a town council, but we'd like to fully support it in the East of the County, and I look forward to seeing it wider across Conway. So thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Michael. Do we have any other speakers? No.
There's me, Councillor Nigel.
Sorry, Phil, I don't, yeah, okay then.
I did have my little blue hand up. I'm sorry I've not got my picture, but I've got connectivity issues.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to refer you to page 176, heading 5.16. It seems to me that this Denbighshire and Conway active travel recreational route would be a good candidate as an initial trial, and it should be perhaps recommended to Cabinet if we could attach that to the recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
And I'm proposing that.
All right. Do we have a seconder for that proposal? Is that Michael, Jeffrey, Sam? Sam's got a hand up. Councillor Sam Cotton? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So Councillor Chris Hughes. Councillor Chris? Have we lost Councillor Chris?
He's not in the meeting.
No, okay.
He's gone. We've lost him.
All right. So, well,
Mr. Chairman, in that case, could I propose that we accept the report and progress the issue at Park Haynes as a trial and recommend that to Cabinet?
Yes.
Because
I'll
that
second that.
roughly corresponds with Councillor Hughes' original proposal with some minor additions.
Yes, I think Councillor Sam Cotton had an addition in there as well. So, Jane, have you got?
Sorry, Chair. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Sam Cotton's proposal?
Councillor Jeff.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Corrie. So, members, are you I'm looking at the recommendation? It's what's in the report, and also includes Councillor Sam's recommendation that the GIA is used to inform wider strategies across the local authority. Is that right, Councillor Sam? Did I get that? Super. And also Councillor Phil Capper's proposal regarding the Denbighshire and Conway active travel route, and Park Haynes being a good trial
area to be progressed.
Trial area, yeah. That's what I have, members. Are there any other proposals?
No. Okay, so we'll put it to the vote then. If members are happy with those recommendations, could you please show?
Sorry, Chair, if you've no objection, I'll do a roll call.
Okay, yes.
For this, because the report will be going to Cabinet next week.
That's fine. Sorry, Jane.
Okay, so if everyone's clear, members, on what you're voting on, I'll read your names out now, and if you can vote in favour, against or abstain. Councillor Carol Beard.
For.
Councillor Phil Capper.
In favour.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
In favour.
Councillor Sam Cotton.
In favour.
Councillor Keith Eales.
In favour.
Councillor Pat Hebron.
In favour.
I think Councillor Chris Hughes has left the meeting. I don't see him there. So Councillor Ian Jenkins. Councillor Ian Jenkins. He's gone as well.
Oh,
No, he's not.
Oh,
He's still
are you,
here.
you there?
Blaid.
Oh, Blaid. Lovely. Diolch, Councillor Jenkins. Councillor Don Mill.
In favour.
Councillor John Roberts. Are you there, Councillor John?
Don't see him.
No, he's gone. Okay, Councillor Harry Saville.
For.
Councillor Michael Smith.
For.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
Councillor Bob Squire.
For.
Councillor Joan Vaughan.
For.
Councillor Aaron Wynne is not.
Obliged.
Obliged. Oh, lovely. Okay, members, I can confirm that the recommendation has been approved.
Sorry, Jane, it's a blight from me as well.
Oh.
Yes, thank you, Abdul. Apologies if I missed you there. It's hard to see everyone. Okay, so we're happy to move on, Councillor Nigel.
We're going to move on to item 11, which is to consider a report by the Head of Regulatory Housing Services on the following matter. Homelessness in Conway, pages 274 to 286.
We have Sam Parry's here, Nigel. To
Sam before you. Good evening, Sam. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. Good evening, members, and thank you for the opportunity to update you on the homelessness situation in Conway. So the report is an annual one, so it follows a similar format to previous reports that you've seen on this subject. I don't propose to go through all the report, but I'll just go through and pick up some just some highlights really. And obviously the report does cover the impact that COVID-19 has had on the service as well. So as members will be aware, homelessness is one of the council's statutory functions, and the responsibilities for such are set out under the Housing Wales Act 2014. So just in terms of highlights really, so moving on to section 3 of the report, as you can see from 3.4 there, since the introduction of the new legislation which came in 2015, there has been a significant increase in demand on the service, and that table at table 1 there shows the number of service requests that the service receives on an annual basis. And you can see there for 1920 that we received 1,367 service requests during the year, and that was a 12.51% increase on the previous year. So quite a substantial increase. So just moving on from there, onto 3.6. So we are required to submit statistical returns to Welsh Government, which are known as the WHO12 statistics. And just to pick out some highlights from there, you can see in bullet point 1, it says there that during 2018-19 and 1920, 312 and 327 households respectively were assessed as threatened with homelessness within 56 days. In 1819, we were able to prevent 70% of those from becoming homeless. And in 1920, that increased to a prevention rate of 72%, which is a really good achievement for the team. Just to pick out another point there, further sort of third bullet point from the bottom of that list, you can see there that we were able to, those that were assessed as being unintentionally homeless and in priority need, so that's also known as the full and final duty. So of those, 84 or 74% and 101 and 73% of those households were positively discharged through acceptance of settled suitable accommodation. So that meant that we were able to move them on into either private rented sector or into the social housing sector to discharge our duties under the legislation. The next 2 bullet points there cover the number of people or households that we had in temporary accommodation. So as at the 31st of March 20, we had 144 households in temporary accommodation, 75 of which were families with children. And that was a similar level to the figure previously at the end of March 2019. The final bullet point there talks about the number of households in bed and breakfast. So you can see there at the end of March 20, we had 36 households in bed and breakfast, of which 8 were families with children. And as you'll see as you come on to later in the report, it's those figures that have significantly been impacted by the pandemic, which I'll come on to in a moment. Just moving on to 3.8, just to further emphasise the good work of the team really in terms of preventing homelessness. You can see there from the corporate plan measure where we look at the percentage of cases where homelessness is prevented. You can see for since 2018 we've continued to increase that prevention rate, and you can see the outturn there for 2019-20 that we were able to prevent 83% of those cases. So that was 235 households that we were able to prevent homelessness for. Just moving down. What else did I want to pick up? Yeah, at 3.11, obviously a significant impact for homelessness in terms of cost is the cost of placing people into emergency accommodation. So you can see there what the budget has been over the past few years on the net expenditure each year. And you can see there in the last sort of few years we've actually been underfunded in that budget. But I can confirm that for this current financial year, 2021, we're hoping to come in on budget, and this is mainly due to the additional funding that we've been provided by Welsh Government in terms of the pandemic, which again I'll come on to in a moment. 3.13 outlines the some of the main reasons for people presenting as homeless. So it's identified there, it's split out there in terms of the different duties that we have and those reasons. Then 3.14, obviously rough sleeping is a significant cause, and that has been increasing over the last few years in Conway and across Wales and other parts of the UK. So that just information just details there the figures that we've reported under the rough sleep account each year. And then just moving on to, obviously, we've got demand in terms of homelessness, and obviously we need supply in order to meet those duties that we have. So there's information there at 3.17 and 3.1 in terms of the number of people that we have on our common housing register and the number of affordable housing units that we've been able to deliver and fund during 1920. And then just coming on to 3.19 now in terms of the impact of COVID on the team. So very early on in the pandemic, the Minister for Local Government and Housing, Julie James, made it very clear in terms of how homelessness services would be able to contribute to the response to the pandemic. And in order to do that, Welsh Government made available £10 million to support local authorities with the additional expense in terms of the requirements on us in terms of the response. So under 3.23, we were issued with guidance which required us to urgently review the accommodation that we were using at the time to ensure that it met the guidance, so that households within those establishments were able to self-isolate should they need to, but also to increase the supply of suitable emergency accommodation to meet the significant rise in numbers that would present to the local authority from March onwards. 3.24 there gives the figures in terms of the numbers. As I mentioned before, at the end of March 20, we had 39 households in emergency accommodation. At the beginning of June, that had risen to 110 households. So you can imagine a significant increase, and the majority of those were single households and a smaller number being families. And as at today, well, as at the 19th of October, we still had 104 households in emergency accommodation, and that figure is relatively staying static. As much as we are doing really good work in terms of moving people on, we're still getting people presenting, and we're needing to accommodate further households. So it is sort of remaining pretty much static. As I've noted there in 3.26, we've claimed to the hardship fund for the period between April and September, a total of 456,000 from that fund. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, you know, the pandemic has had a significant impact on staff, not least in dealing with the effect on them and their families, and obviously the additional pressures that's brought, but they've had to adapt to working from home or in different ways. Caseloads have significantly increased due to the numbers that we've now got accommodated in emergency accommodation. But we've had really good support from all of our partners, and we've had a really good, positive working relationship with colleagues both within Conwy Council, but also outside of the authority too, which has been really, really positive and pleasing, and certainly made things a lot easier than it could have been. So that's been great. And just to highlight as well, amongst all of this, we were issued with Homelessness Phase 2 planning guidance. So we had to put together a Phase 2 plan and also submit a funding bid for revenue and capital to Welsh Government. So we had the guidance issued at the beginning of June, and we had to submit that plan and bid by the 30th of June, which was quite a tall order, but we did do that, and you can see at 3.34 there that we've been awarded 358,000 in revenue, and we've had an indicative award of 802,000 for capital projects. Just to say that the risks have been noted in section 10, and just in terms of the recommendation, it's just for members to note the information contained in the report, and that's all I wanted to say. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sam. We've got Councillor Michael Smith had his hand up first.
Yeah, thank you, Sam, for a great report, and obviously key importance in for everywhere, not just our county. But I work in Llandudno, and the seemingly rough sleeping community of Llandudno seems to increase ever so. It seems monthly, actually. We seem to have different ones than we had 6 months ago, but they also don't seem local or to the area initially. Would you happen to know what would cause that, or how we can help improve that situation? You know, I see people sleeping in doorways, in sleeping bags. I hear them talking to each other about sleeping rough. So, you know, how are we trying to assist with that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just to say that we do report on a weekly basis on the number of people rough sleeping in the county, and I know as of this week we have nobody rough sleeping in the county. If you are aware of people, or we do get reports of people rough sleeping, we do go out and investigate those, and accommodation is offered to them. You know, at the start of the pandemic, I know that I was aware of a number of people that were sleeping rough in Llandudno. They were accommodated. If you remember, I think it's noted in the report that we used cabins to accommodate the majority of those individuals that were rough sleeping in the town. We've had some really positive outcomes from that. All of those individuals moved on from those cabins, and none of them returned to the streets. They're still in accommodation as we speak today, which I think is a really fantastic achievement, especially as some of those individuals have never engaged with services, or certainly not for a long period of time. So all I can really say on that is we do go out, you know, people can report through StreetLink, or people can report through the team if they are aware of anybody rough sleeping, and we will go out and investigate and offer support and assistance.
Thank you. Cheers.
Councillor Bob, you had your hand up. Yeah,
thanks, Chair. I don't think Sam would forgive me if I didn't say anything on the report, but I really welcome it, and Sam's doing an excellent job, and I think I would like that recorded before I go into my questions, because she knows what's coming. But the worry I have is that in 3.3 it says this duty applies to anyone in need of assistance, regardless of whether there is a local connection to Conwy County Borough or if they are intentionally homeless. And personally, Sam, I think that leaves the department open to abuse by some people. I always remember when I was working, as you perhaps remember this, at the Abergele man who was on holiday in a caravan, and he rang me to find out what he should do because the caravan camp had come to an end for the season and he was homeless. It turned out that he had a house in England. And this is what I'm afraid of, is this type of abuse. He reported me to the Ombudsman and to every newspaper in creation. But we sorted it, obviously, because he was in the wrong and he was breaking the law. But having said that, I still think that there is that sort of abuse that's going to go on, and probably we'll speak on this in the morning in the meeting, the Task and Finish group on housing. But the work you're doing is superb, and obviously families with children, etc., have got to be really accommodated firsthand. But I'll come to my question, because it does concern me, this business of local connections. My question really, Sam, is why is local connection no longer part of the qualifying criteria, as homelessness is likely to keep increasing despite the brilliant prevention work that you and your department are doing? And it does still worry me, because we achieved local connection, as you know, along with other things, and Welsh Government accepted that was vital, especially in areas like ours, where the risk of people coming in from outside who have got sometimes records and causing antisocial behaviour and crime. I still feel it's going on, and I think it's likely to increase. So could you just answer that for me, please, Sam?
Yeah, sure, Councillor Bob. I can assure you that obviously we do, with every homeless application, it is investigated thoroughly by the team. So just on that point. In terms of the local connection, that change came in with the legislation when it changed in 2015, but it does only apply to the prevention duty. So when we come to what we call the full and final duty, where we have a duty to provide temporary accommodation and then to find longer term accommodation, the local connection does come back into account then. So if it didn't have a local connection at that point, then we wouldn't have a duty to provide that accommodation. Similarly with the priority need, it's those two things that come into play at that point. But at the prevention duty, we don't take into account local connection or priority need at that stage. But that's what came with the change in legislation in 2015. So we've been working that way for a number of years now.
Thank you very much, Sam. Excellent. I was not aware of that.
Okay, Councillor Nigel, are you there? Have I lost you?
Do apologise. Councillor Jones still with us?
Councillor Joan, I think, may have left the meeting.
All right.
But
So
Councillor Harry
is next to speak.
Councillor Charlie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. What I was going to say to begin with, I'm happy to propose the recommendation in the report. We've also seen under paragraph 3.16, there's reference to an emergency shelter pilot, which was run in conjunction with a local churches group. I visited the pilot myself earlier this year. I was really impressed with what I saw, and I think the report goes into some detail, some positive outcomes. So what I'd like, in addition to us noting the report, I'd also like to propose that someone from this authority, whether or not it's the officers, cabinet member, whoever, actually writes to the churches group that ran this pilot and thanks them for the work they put in. It was a volunteer project. It did achieve positive results. It's similar to a project that I know has been run in Wrexham. And I was really impressed. I think there's an awful lot of goodwill and public-spirited effort there. So I'd like that contribution to be noted in the resolution we make. And also if someone could write to them and thank them for the work they did. I've got 3 questions quickly. Paragraph 3.34, it makes reference to this additional revenue funding from Welsh Government, £358,000 worth, but says this is only up until, I think, the end of 2020-21. What I'd like to understand is whether or not we think there will be further funding next year from Welsh Government, or whether or not we're going to be expected to plug that gap ourselves. I'd also like to know 317, where we've got the list of the number of applications in bands 1 to 4, and it appears to be a snapshot from 28th of August 2020. It'd be interesting to know what the changes were. So for example, if we look at band 1, it says number of applications 158, over the year previous, how many people moved out of band 1 and how many people moved into band 1? I understand the overall figure is reasonably static, as Sam's mentioned, but I'd like to know how people moved from those bands into accommodation and see exactly how it varies from band to band. The third question as well, in Appendix 1, makes reference to the micro-village. I've heard a little bit about this myself, but I just wondered if we could have a quick update on when that's likely to be delivered and come online and when people can start being housed in it. So 3 questions and a proposal.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Harry. Yeah, in terms of the revenue, I was in a meeting with Welsh Government colleagues last week. Obviously, Welsh Government are not going to receive details of how much money they are going to be receiving from Westminster till December. So I know that the Minister will be lobbying hard to ensure that there is additional money for homelessness, so that they can continue to support local authorities into the next financial year. But unfortunately, they're not in a position to confirm that that will be the case. They can only say, you know, that they're doing everything they can to ensure that there is an extension of the funding. So I can't really answer that point. You know, obviously, it is a risk to us, and we are looking to see what we can do within our perhaps our housing support grant budget to see if there's anything there that we can look to perhaps meet some of the cost if we need to. But that will be challenging in itself. So really, we are holding out really for money from Welsh Government, really. Moving on to the housing register, that's not something, unfortunately, I can really answer tonight, I'm afraid. It's something I can look into and get back to you on, but I can't really give that information to you this evening, I'm afraid.
That's fine. I mean, I wonder if it would be useful including that in next year's report.
Yes, no problem.
Just to give a fuller picture of how it's changed.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Micro-village.
The micro-village, yeah. In terms of this project, we're just looking at there may be some challenges around access, so we're working with Chraffu Conway on this particular scheme. So they're just looking at those details at the moment. So what it will provide is 10 one-bed units, which can be used to accommodate homeless people within those, and they'll be built using modern methods of construction. It'll be working with Creating Enterprise, who build the house, essentially the house for ones, which we've also developed at Sefton Road in Old Colwyn, which are nearly at completion stage. That's all I've got to say on that at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Charlie McCoubry.
Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak, Chair. A couple of things really. Councillor Harry mentioned the churches that run the night shelters. I have had quite regular correspondence with them all during the crisis, because obviously they were really concerned about how the homeless were faring during this, and they've been really, really supportive of the work that Sam and her team has done. But happy to write a letter, or if they've not been thanked formally, obviously more than happy to do that. I just wanted to really quickly just thank Sam for all the amazing work her and the team do. The figures that are there are really impressive, but they don't tell the full story of just how much work and dedication they put into what they do. We have no homeless in Conway at the moment. I mean, that's an incredible statistic, because there's some very, very difficult clients to manage. Lots of them moved on and settled accommodation, and it's not an overnight process. There's a huge amount of work and investment of time and energy that goes into that. So just thought it was worth adding that, because it is a really, really impressive thing to be able to say that we have no homeless on our streets. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Charlie. Yeah, I'd just like to add, Sam, we're ever so grateful to you and your team for the excellent work you're doing in the most difficult of circumstances that we've been through this, or that we're in the midst of this pandemic. And you mentioned earlier about rough sleepers. I just wondered whether, I thought Charlie might have mentioned about the 10 that are rough sleeping at the castle, but clearly he hasn't. Anyway, so thank you very much. I don't think we have any more speakers. I want to thank you for your time, Sam. Take care, keep safe, and keep the good work.
Councillor Nigel, can we just have a show of hands that members support?
We need a show of hands. Yes.
Proposer, seconder, please.
All right.
All those in
I think
favour,
Harry was happy to propose. I think we'll get Bob to say.
I'll second.
All right.
Thank you. All those in favour, all show. Super. Thank you very much, members.
So, members, item 12, which is the establishment of the Sports North Wales Partnership hosting agreement, has been delayed or deferred until the 2nd of December in order for more work to be done with Sport North Wales. So that has been cancelled for tonight. So that is the end of our meeting.
Councillor Nigel, I've got Councillor Abdul's hand up, so I just want to check that he didn't want to.
No, I voted in favour of the last.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. So that's the end of the meeting. I want to thank everybody for their time, and keep safe, keep the good work up. We'll see you soon.